The Alpha King rejected his fated mate in front of an entire kingdom. Thousands of wolves watched as the bond between them shattered. No one spoke. No one breathed. Every eye waited for the young Omega to collapse, to cry, to beg for another chance. Instead, she looked straight into the eyes of the most powerful alpha alive, and laughed, not the laughter of a broken woman, the laughter of someone who already knew a truth no one else did. Then she whispered 7 words that would destroy an empire. You just rejected the only woman who could save your kingdom. The smile disappeared from the Alpha King's face. Before he could demand an explanation, she turned her back on him and vanished into the frozen wilderness. By sunrise, the royal guards sent to follow her were found dead without a single wound on their bodies. Witnesses swore they had seen enormous ancient wolves surrounding a lone woman in the snow. Wolves that had vanished from history hundreds of years ago. But the strangest part was not that they protected her. It was that every one of those legendary beasts bowed before the rejected Omega as if she were their rightful queen. The Alpha King believed he had cast away a weak mate. He had no idea he had just rejected the last living heir of a bloodline powerful enough to unite every wolf kingdom or reduce it to ashes. And by the time he uncovered the truth, she was no longer waiting to be chosen. She had become someone the entire world would either kneel before or die trying to destroy. The royal arena had never been so quiet. Thousands of wolves stood shoulder to shoulder beneath towering stone walls, draped with black banners, marked by the crest of the Blackthorn Kingdom. Snow drifted lazily from the gray winter sky and settled across armored shoulders and fur cloaks. Every noble alpha, every beta, every omega had gathered to witness what should have been a celebration. Today the moon ceremony would reveal the Alpha King's destined mate. Instead, it became the darkest day anyone could remember. At the center of the arena stood Alpha King Rowan Blackthorn. Tall, broad-shouldered, and wrapped in a black wolf fur cloak, he looked every bit the ruler feared across the northern kingdoms. His piercing blue eyes swept over the crowd before settling on the young woman standing alone across from him. Lyra Ashwood. She looked almost fragile beside him. Her silver blonde hair rested over the shoulders of her simple blue dress trimmed with white fur. Snowflakes melted softly against her pale skin. Her bright blue-gray eyes never left Rowan's face, even though the silence around them felt sharp enough to cut flesh. She had dreamed of this moment for years, not because she wanted power, not because she wanted a throne, only because every little girl raised among wolves secretly wished that somewhere in the world her fated mate would look at her with love. The royal priest stepped forward. His old voice echoed through the arena. The moon goddess has spoken. Alpha King Rowan Blackthorn and Lyra Ashwood have been bound by fate. A wave of whispers spread across the crowd. Some smiled, others frowned. Many nobles exchanged worried glances. An Omega healer becoming queen had never happened before. Lady Celine Voss lowered her eyes to hide the small smile growing across her lips. Everything was happening exactly as she had planned. Rowan remained completely still. His face showed nothing. Not happiness, not surprise, not even anger. Then he reached inside his black cloak and pulled out a folded parchment sealed with royal wax. The entire arena held its breath. His deep voice rolled across the stone walls. Lyra Ashwood, you stand accused of conspiring with enemies of the crown. You have exchanged secret messages with rival packs. You intended to poison your future Alpha King. The whispers exploded into shocked cries. Lyra blinked in disbelief. For a heartbeat, she simply stared at him. Her lips parted, but no words came. The accusations sounded impossible. She had never left the healer village without permission. She had never spoken to rival alphas. She had never even imagined harming Rowan. The old healer who had raised her stumbled forward through the crowd. Your Majesty, this cannot be true. She has served the Six since she was a child. She would never betray anyone. Royal guards blocked his path. Rowan unfolded the parchment. The royal seal confirms these crimes. The moon may have chosen you, but I refuse that choice. He stepped forward. His voice became cold enough to freeze the falling snow. Before the witness of every kingdom, before the moon goddess herself, I reject Lyra Ashwood as my mate. Silence crashed over the arena. It felt as though even the wind had stopped breathing. Every face turned toward Lyra. An Omega rejected by her mate rarely survived the pain. Some fainted. Some lost their wolves forever. Others never smiled again. Young girls lowered their eyes, unable to watch. Older women quietly wiped tears from their faces. The humiliation was unbearable. Lyra felt something deep inside her chest tear apart. The invisible bond that had pulled her toward Rowan since the ceremony began shattered into countless invisible pieces. Pain rushed through her body. Her knees almost gave way beneath her. Her heart screamed for her to beg him, to fight, to prove herself. But another feeling rose beside the pain. It was strange, old, almost familiar. A quiet voice, buried somewhere inside her soul, whispered that this was not the end. Slowly she lifted her head. Her eyes met Rowan's once again. Everyone expected tears. Everyone expected pleading. Instead, something unbelievable happened. She smiled. The smile was soft, almost peaceful. Then she laughed. The sound echoed across the frozen arena. Not loudly, not wildly. It was a quiet laugh filled with sadness that somehow carried farther than any scream. Shock rippled through the crowd. Even Rowan frowned. Lady Celine's confident smile disappeared. Lyra looked directly at the Alpha King. You believe you have won today, but you have only opened the door to your greatest regret. Rowan's jaw tightened. Explain yourself. She slowly shook her head. No. Some truths cannot be understood until they are lost. Her calm voice unsettled everyone more than anger ever could. You rejected the only woman who could save your kingdom. A cold wind swept through the arena. Somewhere high above the castle walls, a lone wolf howled. The sound echoed across the mountains like a warning carried by ancient spirits. Rowan took one step toward her. What are you hiding? Lyra looked into his eyes for a long moment. There was no hatred inside her, only disappointment. One day you will search every corner of this world for the woman standing before you today. When that day comes, pray that I still remember your name. Without another word, she turned around. No tears fell. No cries escaped her lips. She simply walked through the parted crowd, while thousands of eyes followed her every step. No one dared stop her. The old healer called after her with trembling hands. Lyra, please do not leave. She paused for only a heartbeat. Take care of yourself, Father. Thank you for giving an orphan a home. Then she continued walking until the great gates closed behind her. Far above the arena, dark clouds gathered. Snow began falling harder than before. Lady Celine quietly stepped beside Rowan. You made the right choice, Your Majesty. Traitors deserve nothing more. Yet Rowan did not answer. For reasons he could not explain, an uneasy feeling settled deep inside his chest. It was as though the bond he had destroyed had taken something precious away with it. Hours passed. Night swallowed the kingdom. Lyra walked alone across endless fields of untouched snow. The freezing wind tore at her cloak. Her fingers had grown numb. Still she refused to stop. She did not know where she was going, only that there was nothing left behind her. Then the silence broke. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Footsteps. Not one pair. Many. She slowly turned. Shapes emerged between the snow-covered trees. Royal assassins. Their swords gleamed beneath the moonlight. The leader lowered his hood. Forgive us. The Queen ordered that no witness survives tonight. Lyra's heart stopped. The Queen. There was no Queen. Not yet. Then who had given the order? Before she could ask, another sound rolled through the frozen forest. A deep, thunderous growl. Another answered. Then another. The assassins froze. From the darkness beyond the trees, dozens of enormous wolves stepped into the moonlight. Their silver-gray coats shimmered beneath the falling snow. Their glowing blue eyes never left the men holding their blades. None of these wolves belonged to any known pack. Every elder believed they had vanished centuries ago. Yet here they stood, silent, watching, waiting. And one by one, every ancient wolf lowered its head before Lyra Ashwood. The assassins stared in horror. Lyra herself could barely breathe. She had never seen these creatures before. Yet somehow they looked at her as though they had been searching for her all their lives. The largest wolf stepped forward. Its ancient eyes locked onto hers. Then it bowed even lower, as if kneeling before its true queen. The forest fell into a silence, so deep that even the falling snow seemed afraid to touch the ground. Lyra stood frozen between the royal assassins and the enormous silver-gray wolves. Her breath rose in slow white clouds before disappearing into the bitter night. The largest wolf remained bowed before her while the others formed a living circle around her. Their thick coats carried scars of countless battles. Their eyes held an ancient wisdom that no ordinary beast could possess. The assassins looked at one another with growing fear. Their leader swallowed hard. These wolves cannot exist. They disappeared hundreds of years ago. One younger assassin tightened his grip on his sword, even though his hands were shaking. They're only animals. Kill the girl before they attack. The leader hesitated for only a heartbeat before raising his blade. Forward! The command had barely left his mouth when the largest wolf moved. It happened so quickly that no human eye could truly follow it. One moment the wolf stood beside Lyra. The next moment it crashed into the assassin with the force of an avalanche. The sound of snapping armor echoed through the forest. The man's sword flew into the snow. His terrified scream ended almost as soon as it began. The remaining assassins stumbled backward. Fear replaced their confidence. These were not ordinary wolves. These were creatures born from forgotten legends. Another wolf leaped through the air. Another soldier disappeared beneath powerful jaws. The snow became marked with broken footprints and scattered weapons. Lyra could only watch. She had spent her entire life healing wounds. She had never witnessed such terrifying strength. Within moments the battle was over. The surviving assassins fled into the darkness without daring to look back. Not a single wolf chased them. Instead, every one of them turned toward Lyra. Once again they lowered their heads, not as animals, as loyal guardians greeting their rightful ruler. Lyra slowly stepped backward. "Who are you?" No answer came. Only the quiet sound of the winter wind moving through the trees. The largest wolf walked closer. Its enormous head stopped only inches from her hand. For reasons she could not explain, fear slowly faded from her heart. She reached forward with trembling fingers. The moment her skin touched its thick fur, a strange warmth spread through her body. A bright silver light flashed beneath her fingertips. The wolf closed its eyes peacefully. Images exploded inside Lyra's mind. A magnificent palace carved from white crystal. Thousands of wolves kneeling beneath a glowing full moon. A young queen wearing a silver crown. Fire, blood, screams. A crying baby carried away through hidden tunnels. Then darkness swallowed everything. Lyra pulled her hand away with a gasp. The vision vanished. Her heart raced wildly inside her chest. None of it made sense. Before she could gather another thought, the wolves suddenly lifted their heads together. Their ears pointed toward the distant mountains. Something was coming. The largest wolf growled softly, not at Lyra, at the darkness beyond the trees. Moments later a sharp whistle echoed through the forest. An arrow struck the snow only inches from Lyra's feet. Another followed, then another. Hidden archers. The wolves immediately formed a protective wall around her. Black-cloaked hunters emerged from every direction. Unlike the royal assassins, these warriors carried no kingdom crest upon their armor. Their leader stepped forward. His face remained hidden beneath a heavy hood. "Bring the girl alive. Kill everything else." The forest exploded into chaos. Arrows rained through the trees. The wolves charged without hesitation. Lyra ran. She did not know where. Only away from the battle. Branches whipped across her face. Snow reached her knees. Her lungs burned from the freezing air. Behind her the sounds of battle slowly faded. Ahead of her stretched endless white wilderness. She stumbled over a frozen route and rolled down a steep hill before crashing into the icy bank of a river. Pain shot through her shoulder. She struggled to stand, but her legs refused to obey. The freezing wind cut through her torn cloak. Her vision blurred. Perhaps this was where her journey ended. Then heavy footsteps approached across the snow. Lyra forced herself to look up. A tall man stood before her. His broad shoulders were wrapped in a thick white wolf fur cloak. Long silver hair rested against dark leather armor marked with the crest of a snow wolf. Calm gray eyes studied her with quiet understanding. He did not reach for a weapon. Instead, he slowly knelt beside her. "You survived." His voice was deep yet strangely gentle. Lyra stared at him in confusion. "Who are you?" The man gave a respectful bow. "My name is Frostfang, Alpha of the Northern Clans. I have been searching for you my entire life." Lyra frowned. "You have mistaken me for someone else. I am only a healer." Kale smiled sadly. "That is what they wanted you to believe." He removed one leather glove and offered his hand. "Come with me. You are no longer safe anywhere south of the frozen mountains." Lyra hesitated. Every lesson she had ever learned warned her never to trust strangers. Yet something about Kale felt different. There was no greed in his eyes. No pity. Only duty. She slowly accepted his hand. The moment their hands touched, another pulse of silver light spread across her skin. Kale froze. His calm expression disappeared for the first time. So it is true. Lyra quickly pulled her hand away. True. Kale looked toward the mountains before answering. Your blood has finally awakened. He refused to explain further. Instead, he led her across the frozen river toward the northern wilderness. For hours they walked beneath endless snowfall. The world became quieter with every step. No villages, no roads, only mountains rising like giants beneath the moonlight. Just before sunrise, they reached a narrow canyon hidden between towering cliffs. Kale stopped before what appeared to be nothing more than solid stone. He placed one hand against the frozen cliff. Ancient words left his lips in a language Lyra had never heard before. The mountain trembled. Ice cracked. Snow slid from the rocks. Slowly, a massive stone doorway appeared where moments earlier there had been only solid cliff. Lyra's eyes widened. An entire passage had been hidden inside the mountain. Warm air drifted outward, carrying the scent of burning cedar wood. As they stepped inside, dozens of warriors immediately knelt before Kale. Yet to Lyra's surprise, many of them looked not at their alpha. They looked at her, some with hope, some with disbelief. One elderly woman suddenly covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. It cannot be. She whispered the words as though speaking to a ghost. The silver eyes. The moon has truly returned. Before Lyra could ask what she meant, an older warrior rushed into the hall. His face was pale with fear. Alpha Kale, our scouts have returned. Kale turned sharply. Report. The warrior struggled to catch his breath. Every kingdom has begun searching the north. Not just Rowan Blackthorn. The eastern packs. The Western Empire. Even the Shadow clans. They are all looking for one woman. The hall became completely silent. Kale slowly looked toward Lyra. His expression had become darker than the storm outside. They no longer seek an abandoned Omega. They are hunting the last surviving bloodline of an ancient kingdom. Before anyone could speak again, the mountain itself began to shake. A deafening roar echoed beneath the stone floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then somewhere deep below the hidden fortress, an enormous ancient door slowly began to open for the first time in centuries. The ancient fortress shook again. A deep rumble rolled beneath the stone floor like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Dust drifted from the ceiling while old torches flickered against the walls. Every warrior inside the hidden sanctuary immediately reached for a weapon. Even the seasoned soldiers who had survived countless battles looked uneasy. Kale did not move. His gray eyes remained fixed on the dark passage leading deeper into the mountain. He spoke in a calm voice. No one draws a blade. No one enters before her. Every gaze slowly turned toward Lyra. She looked from one face to another with growing confusion. Why are you all looking at me? The elderly woman, who had recognized her silver eyes, stepped forward. Tears still rested in the corners of her eyes. Because the mountain has waited for you. For hundreds of years. Lyra felt her heartbeat quicken. I have never been here before. The old woman smiled gently. No, but your blood has. Another tremor passed through the fortress. This time the stone doors at the end of the hall slowly opened by themselves. Cold silver light poured through the narrow gap. It was not sunlight. It was not fire. The glow seemed alive, as though the mountain itself had awakened after centuries of silence. No one crossed the threshold. Every warrior lowered their head. Kale looked toward Lyra. Only you can enter. She hesitated. Everything inside her warned that stepping beyond those doors would change her life forever. Yet another feeling pulled her forward. It was soft but impossible to ignore. Like hearing a familiar voice remembered from childhood. She slowly stepped into the ancient corridor. The doors closed behind her with a deep echo. Silence surrounded her. The air smelled of old stone and cedar. Silver flames burned inside crystal bowls without smoke or heat. Strange carvings covered every wall. Wolves with glowing eyes. Queens wearing crowns shaped like the moon. Great battles fought beneath frozen skies. Lyra walked carefully. Every step echoed through the endless hallway. She reached a vast circular chamber hidden beneath the mountain. At its center stood a throne carved entirely from white crystal. Above it hung an enormous silver moon carved into the ceiling. The moment she entered the room, the crystal throne began to glow. A warm pulse spread across the floor. Then voices filled the chamber. Not loud, not frightening. Soft whispers. Dozens of them. Welcome home. Lyra turned quickly. No one stood behind her. The whispers came from everywhere. From the walls. From the floor. From the throne itself. She slowly approached the crystal seat. As her fingers brushed its armrest, another vision flooded her mind. She saw a beautiful kingdom buried beneath moonlight. Silver banners danced in the wind. Children laughed through peaceful streets. Powerful wolves guarded towering white castles. Then the sky turned black. Fire rained from above. Enemy armies broke through the gates. A woman wearing a silver crown held a newborn child against her chest. Her face looked hauntingly familiar. She kissed the baby's forehead with trembling lips. Protect her, no matter the cost. A gray-haired elder accepted the child with tears in his eyes. The queen turned back toward the burning palace. Moments later, flames swallowed everything. Lyra gasped and stumbled backward. The vision vanished. Her cheeks were wet with tears she had never realized were falling. A quiet voice echoed through the chamber. You remember her. Lyra slowly lifted her head. An old man stood beside the throne. His long white robes shimmered beneath the silver light. His face was peaceful, almost transparent, like a spirit. Who are you? The old man smiled. A memory, nothing more. I served the Moonborn Kings before your world forgot our name. Lyra shook her head. I do not understand any of this. The spirit walked toward a nearby wall where an enormous family tree had been carved into crystal. At its highest branch rested the image of a crowned queen. Below it stretched generations of rulers. One by one, every branch ended in darkness. Only the final name continued glowing. Lyra Ashwood. Your true name was never Ashwood. It was hidden to protect you. You were born Lyra Mooncrest, the last daughter of the Moonborn bloodline. Lyra felt as though the ground disappeared beneath her feet. No, that cannot be true. I was an orphan. The spirit nodded gently. You believe that because brave people sacrificed everything to keep you alive. Your parents died protecting you. Your kingdom died protecting you. Your name disappeared so that one day your life could continue. Lyra stared at the glowing family tree. Everything she had believed about herself suddenly felt like a beautiful lie. Before she could speak again, another familiar voice echoed behind her. She turned. Elder Magnus slowly entered the chamber. His tired face softened the moment he saw her. My child. Lyra's eyes widened. Father Magnus. He smiled sadly. I hoped you would never discover the truth. Not because you did not deserve it. Because I wanted you to have one ordinary life before destiny found you. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. You knew. All these years. Magnus nodded. I carried you through burning tunnels while your kingdom fell behind us. You were only a few hours old. Your mother placed you into my arms herself. She ordered me never to tell anyone who you were until the mountain called your blood. Today it finally did. Lyra ran toward him. Without thinking, she wrapped her arms around the old man. He held her tightly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Years of unanswered questions dissolved into silent tears. When they finally stepped apart, Magnus reached toward her shoulder. May I? She nodded. He gently pulled aside the edge of her fur cloak. The silver moon-shaped birthmark rested against her pale skin. It had always been there. She had always believed it was nothing more than a strange mark. Now it shone brighter than ever before. Magnus smiled through his tears. The mark of every Moonborn queen. No one else can carry it. The chamber suddenly trembled once again. This time the silver light spread through the walls like flowing water. The spirit bowed respectfully. Your bloodline has accepted you. The first seal is broken, but 3 more remain. Kale entered the chamber at that moment. His normally calm expression had become grim. Forgive me for interrupting. We have little time. Scouts have returned. Every kingdom has crossed the northern border. Thousands of soldiers march toward these mountains. Lady Selene herself leads one army. Rowan Blackthorn leads another. Lyra's heart skipped. Rowan. Kale studied her carefully. His face showed neither jealousy nor anger. Only concern. He is searching for you. Whether from regret or duty I cannot yet say. Before anyone could continue, Lyra suddenly pressed one hand against her stomach. A strange warmth spread through her body. It was gentle, alive. She frowned in confusion. Magnus noticed immediately. His expression changed. Concern replaced relief. He slowly stepped closer. Lyra, tell me honestly, since the moon ceremony, have you felt weak in the mornings? Have certain scents become unbearable? Has your heartbeat felt different? Lyra looked into his eyes, then slowly nodded. Every day. Magnus closed his eyes for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was almost a whisper. The prophecy has begun. Lyra stared at him without understanding. What prophecy? The old healer opened his eyes. They were filled with equal parts joy and fear. My child, you are carrying the last royal heir of the Moonborn Kingdom. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the ancient silver flames seemed to stop dancing. Outside the mountain, the wind howled louder than ever before. And somewhere beyond the frozen peaks, an army was already marching toward the last surviving queen, who had only just discovered who she truly was. The words refused to leave Lyra's mind. You are carrying the last royal heir of the Moonborn Kingdom. They echoed through the ancient chamber long after Elder Magnus had fallen silent. She stood motionless beneath the silver light, with one trembling hand resting against her stomach. Only a few days earlier she had believed she was an ordinary healer with no family and no future. Now she had learned she was the last Moonborn Queen, and that another life already beat quietly beneath her heart. Nothing felt real. Tears filled her eyes, but they never fell. She whispered into the silence. How can this be possible? Magnus stepped closer. The moon goddess sometimes chooses strange paths to protect what the world believes has vanished. Life often begins where hope seems to end. Lyra slowly lowered her eyes. The child belongs to Rowan. The room became completely still. Cale looked away without speaking. His expression remained calm, yet something inside his eyes darkened for only a moment before disappearing again. He had already guessed the truth. The moon ceremony had completed the sacred bond before Rowan rejected it. Even a shattered bond could leave behind a miracle. Magnus gently placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. No matter what happens from this day forward, this child belongs first to destiny. Every kingdom will either protect this life or hunt it. Before Lyra could answer, the heavy doors of the chamber burst open. A northern scout rushed inside, covered in snow and breathing hard. Alpha Cale, enemy banners have appeared across the eastern ridge. Not one army, 3. Cale immediately stepped forward. How close? The scout struggled to steady his breathing. Less than half a day. They are searching every valley and every frozen pass. Someone revealed our location. A dangerous silence settled over the chamber. No one needed to ask the question. There could only be one explanation. A traitor lived inside the mountain. Cale's eyes hardened. Seal every entrance. No one leaves. No one enters. Find whoever betrayed us before another message reaches the enemy. The scout bowed quickly before disappearing. Lyra looked toward Cale. Someone here wants me dead. Cale met her eyes. Someone here fears what you are becoming. That is even more dangerous. Far to the south, another storm was beginning. Inside the Blackthorn Palace, Rowan Blackthorn stood alone in the royal archive, surrounded by old records scattered across a massive oak table. He had not slept since Lyra disappeared. Something inside him refused to believe she had betrayed him. The forged letters still lay before him. He read them again and again. Each time the words felt colder. Too perfect. Too carefully written. His instincts had never failed him in battle. Why did they feel wrong now? The doors opened behind him. Captain Darius entered, carrying another bundle of documents. Your Majesty, I found the original messenger records from the eastern border. Rowan looked up sharply. Place them here. Darius obeyed. Together they searched every page. Hours passed in complete silence. Then Rowan suddenly stopped. His eyes narrowed. This seal. Darius leaned closer. What is it? Rowan slowly held up one document beside another. The royal seal on the accusations against Lyra was identical. Too identical. Every crack. Every mark. Perfect copies. No royal seal leaves the same impression twice. Someone forged them. A cold wave rushed through Rowan's body. He remembered Lyra standing before him. She had never defended herself. She had never begged. She had only looked disappointed. For the first time in years, the Alpha King felt genuine fear. Not fear of war. Fear that he had destroyed the only person who had trusted him without question. His voice dropped to a whisper. Bring me Lady Selene. Immediately. Minutes later Selene entered the royal hall, wearing a graceful crimson gown. Her smile was warm as always. You wish to see me? Rowan stepped toward her. His face revealed nothing. Where did you obtain the evidence against Lyra? Selene answered without hesitation. From the Eastern spies. Why? Rowan watched every movement, every breath, every blink. Which spies? She paused, only for a heartbeat, then smiled again. Their names were sealed for their protection. That single hesitation was enough. Rowan had spent his entire life reading enemies. He recognized deception the moment it appeared. His voice became ice. There were no spies. Were there? Selene's smile slowly disappeared. Your Majesty, surely you are not questioning my loyalty. Rowan stepped even closer. No, I am questioning your honesty. The room fell silent. For the first time Selene's confidence cracked. She had expected grief, not suspicion. Rowan turned toward the guards waiting beside the doors. Lock every palace gate. No one leaves until every document connected to the accusation has been investigated. Selene's eyes widened. You cannot mean this. I protected this kingdom. Rowan looked at her without emotion. If you speak the truth, you have nothing to fear. But if you lied, his voice became dangerously quiet. Then you destroyed more than a sacred bond. You may have doomed this kingdom. Selene lowered her head. Behind the mask of fear another emotion burned. Hatred. Deep and patient. She had worked for years to erase the Moonborn bloodline. She refused to lose everything now. While Rowan continued his investigation, she quietly slipped a small silver ring from her finger. Hidden inside rested a tiny black crystal. She crushed it beneath her heel. Far beyond the palace walls, hidden among the snowy mountains, a raven suddenly lifted into the sky. It flew north, carrying an invisible magical signal. The traitor inside Kael's fortress looked upward, then smiled. The message had arrived. The queen knows where the Moonborn lives. Back inside the hidden mountain, another discovery waited. Kael led Lyra through narrow tunnels that reached deeper beneath the fortress than anyone else was allowed to enter. Ancient doors lined the walls. Each carried the crest of a full moon surrounded by kneeling wolves. At the end of the passage stood a quiet underground lake. Its water was perfectly still, like polished glass. Kael stopped. This place existed long before the first Alpha Kingdom. No life survives here. No hidden blood remains hidden. Lyra looked across the glowing water. Why bring me here? Kael answered softly. Because before the armies arrive, you deserve to know the truth about your own heart. He nodded toward the lake. Touch the water. She slowly knelt. The surface felt warm beneath her fingertips. Ripples spread outward. Then the lake transformed into moving memories. She saw Rowan, not as a king, as a lonely young alpha training before sunrise until his hands bled. She saw him secretly feeding orphan wolf pups no one else wanted. She saw him refusing noble brides because none carried the bond he had always believed the moon goddess would one day reveal. Then the memory changed. Selene entered his chamber carrying forged letters. Fear filled her voice as she warned him that his destined mate planned to murder him before the bonding ceremony. Lyra watched Rowan struggle. He refused to believe it. Again and again he searched for proof, until finally the false evidence overwhelmed even his instincts. The final memory showed him standing in the arena. His face looked calm, but inside his eyes lived unbearable conflict. He had rejected her believing he was protecting his kingdom. The vision disappeared. Lyra remained kneeling beside the lake. Her heart felt heavier than before. He believed it. Kael nodded. Yes, he rejected you because he trusted the wrong person, not because he hated you. Lyra closed her eyes. The pain did not disappear. Knowing the truth could heal many wounds, but humiliation could never be erased. Suddenly the entire cavern shook violently. A deafening explosion echoed somewhere above them. Dust rained from the ceiling. Another explosion followed. War horns sounded across the fortress. A frightened warrior rushed into the chamber. Alpha Kael, the eastern gate has fallen. Someone opened it from the inside. The enemy is already inside the mountain. Kael immediately drew his sword. His calm voice disappeared. Take the queen to the sanctuary. Now. But before anyone could move, another terrifying sound echoed through the tunnels. Footsteps. Hundreds of them. The enemy had not only found the hidden fortress, They had reached its heart. The sound of steel crashing against steel echoed through the hidden mountain like rolling thunder. War cries filled the tunnels that had remained silent for centuries. Flames from the wall torches danced wildly as smoke drifted through the ancient halls. Northern warriors charged into the narrow passages, while enemy soldiers poured through the shattered eastern gate. Every corner of the fortress became a battlefield. Kale stood at the front of his warriors with his sword raised high. His calm face had disappeared. Only the fearless Alpha remained. Hold the passage. No one reaches the inner sanctuary. The northern warriors answered with a united roar before throwing themselves into the advancing enemy. The narrow tunnel worked in their favor. Only a few attackers could fight at once. Bodies quickly covered the frozen stone floor. Still the enemy kept coming. They had not marched across the mountains to claim land. They had come for one woman. Deep inside the fortress, Lyra followed Elder Magnus through winding corridors hidden behind ancient walls. The old healer moved faster than his age should have allowed. Do not stop. Do not look back. Whatever happens, you must reach the Hall of the Moon. Lyra struggled to keep pace. The distant sounds of battle echoed behind them. Each scream tightened the fear inside her chest. These people were risking their lives because of her. The thought became almost unbearable. She suddenly stopped running. Magnus noticed immediately. What is wrong? Tears burned in Lyra's eyes. People are dying because I exist. Magnus gently held both of her shoulders. No, they are fighting because they finally have something worth protecting. There is a difference. His words settled deep inside her heart. Before she could answer, another violent explosion shook the corridor. Part of the ceiling collapsed behind them. Dust filled the air. Magnus quickly guided her through a narrow stone doorway hidden beneath hanging roots. The passage led downward, far beneath the fortress. The air became warmer with every step. At the end of the staircase stood an enormous circular chamber unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into darkness, where thousands of glowing crystals shimmered like stars. Silver rivers flowed beneath clear stone bridges. Ancient trees with white leaves surrounded the chamber. At its center rested a magnificent platform carved entirely from crystal. Upon it stood a crown, simple, elegant, forged from silver that seemed almost alive. The moment Lyra entered the chamber, every crystal overhead began glowing brighter. The air itself seemed to breathe. Magnus slowly lowered himself onto one knee. The Hall of the Moon has accepted your presence. Lyra looked around in silent wonder. This place felt peaceful despite the war raging above. It felt like home. She slowly approached the crystal platform. The closer she came, the warmer the silver birthmark upon her shoulder became. Soft light spread beneath her feet. Ancient voices whispered once more. Not one voice. Hundreds. Welcome home. Our queen. Lyra reached toward the crown. Just before her fingers touched it, another voice echoed through the chamber. Do not fear who you are. She looked around. No one stood nearby. The voice continued. Power without kindness becomes tyranny. Kindness without strength becomes sacrifice. You must become both. Her hand finally touched the silver crown. The world disappeared. Brilliant light surrounded her. She no longer stood inside the chamber. Instead, she found herself walking through endless moonlight. Before her stood generations of moonborn rulers, kings, queens, warriors, healers, children. Every one of them smiled with quiet pride. An elderly queen stepped forward wearing the same silver crown. Her eyes looked exactly like Lyra's. My child, you carry not only our blood, you carry our hope. Lyra felt tears fall freely. I do not know how to lead anyone. The queen smiled gently. Neither did I. The strongest rulers are those who never desired a throne. Light surrounded Lyra. One by one, every ancient ruler placed a glowing hand upon her shoulders. Warmth filled every part of her body. Fear slowly disappeared. In its place came peace. Then came strength. Real strength. Not born from anger. Born from purpose. The vision slowly faded. Back inside the chamber, Lyra stood surrounded by brilliant silver light. Her long silver blonde hair moved softly though no wind existed. Her blue-gray eyes shimmered with quiet power. The ancient crown rested upon her head. Every crystal inside the hall erupted with radiant light. Above them the mountain itself answered. A deafening howl echoed across every frozen valley. Far outside the fortress, enormous wolves hidden throughout the northern wilderness suddenly lifted their heads toward the sky. One after another they began running toward the mountain. The queen had awakened. Back on the battlefield, Kale heard the distant howl. A small smile crossed his face despite the blood staining his armor. She has accepted the crown. His warriors looked at one another with renewed determination. Hope returned to their exhausted hearts. The enemy noticed it too. Their commander shouted angrily, "Push forward! Kill her before the ceremony is complete." The fighting became even fiercer. Steel flashed beneath torchlight. Snow blew through shattered gates. The fortress trembled beneath endless attacks. Far to the south, Rowan Blackthorn rode across the frozen plains with his royal guard. His horse barely slowed despite the heavy snow. Captain Darius finally caught up beside him. "Your Majesty." The scouts confirmed the reports. "Several kingdoms have already reached the northern mountains. If we continue, we may arrive in the middle of a war." Rowan never looked away from the horizon. "Then we ride faster." Darius studied him carefully. "You truly believe Lady Lyra is innocent?" Rowan closed his eyes for only a moment. Every mile north felt heavier than the last. "I no longer believe. I know." He remembered her laughter inside the arena. He remembered the sadness in her eyes. For the first time since becoming Alpha King, he admitted something to himself. He had not merely rejected his mate. He had broken the heart of the one woman who had looked at him without fear. The realization hurt more than any wound he had ever suffered. Back inside the Hall of the Moon, Lyra slowly removed her hands from the glowing crown. Magnus looked at her with tears shining in his eyes. "Your Majesty." The words sounded strange. Lyra immediately shook her head. "Please, do not call me that. I am still Lyra." Magnus smiled warmly. "That is exactly why you deserve the title." Before either of them could continue, another warrior stumbled into the chamber. Blood covered his shoulder. His breathing came in painful gasps. "Alpha Kale sent me. The western defenses have fallen. Enemy soldiers had entered the sacred halls." Magnus stepped forward. "How long before they reach us?" The warrior lowered his eyes. "Minutes. No more." Silence filled the chamber. Lyra slowly looked toward the ancient crown resting upon her head, then toward the frightened messenger. Something inside her had changed. The frightened healer who once hid behind others had quietly disappeared. She walked toward the warrior. "Help the wounded. Protect the children. Leave this place to me." Magnus stared at her. "You cannot face an army alone." Lyra looked into his eyes. "I will not face them alone." She gently raised one hand. The silver mark upon her shoulder burst into brilliant light. The entire mountain answered. The stone walls shook. Outside, every ancient wolf reached the fortress at once. Their thunderous howls echoed across the frozen kingdom. Even the enemy soldiers stopped fighting for a single heartbeat, because something impossible was happening. The mountain itself was opening. Hidden gates sealed for centuries slowly rose from beneath the snow. From within them marched hundreds of warriors wearing silver armor untouched by time. Not ghosts, not spirits, the last hidden guardians of the Moonborn Kingdom. At their head walked a towering commander whose face was marked by countless old scars. The moment he saw Lyra standing beneath the silver crown, he dropped to one knee. Behind him, every ancient warrior did the same. His powerful voice echoed through the sacred hall. "Your Majesty, your army has finally come home." At that same moment, deep inside the chaos of the fortress, another pair of unseen eyes watched everything from the shadows. Lady Selene lowered her hood. A cold smile slowly spread across her face. She had not come to kill the queen. She had come for someone far more valuable. Elder Magnus. The ancient warriors rose from their knees as one. Their silver armor reflected the glowing crystals above them until the entire Hall of the Moon shimmered like the surface of a frozen lake beneath a full moon. For centuries, they had remained hidden beneath the mountain, waiting for a single bloodline to return. Now their waiting was over. Their commander stepped forward. His scarred face carried the weight of countless forgotten wars. His long silver cloak brushed against the crystal floor as he lowered his head once more. "My name is General Orion Vale. I commanded your mother's royal guard on the night your kingdom fell. I failed to save her. I will not fail her daughter." Lyra looked into the old warrior's eyes and saw no pride, only regret. She gently reached out and helped him rise. "You protected what mattered most. Because of you I am standing here today." The old general bowed again. This time not from duty, from respect. Before another word could be spoken, a frightened messenger rushed into the sacred hall. His breathing came in desperate gasps, and fresh blood stained the sleeve of his armor. Your Majesty, enemy forces have retreated from the lower tunnels. At first the words sounded like good news. Then he continued, because they are gathering outside the northern gate. Every kingdom has joined together. Thousands of warriors now surround the mountain. The chamber became silent. General Orion slowly walked toward a crystal window carved into the stone wall. From there the entire frozen valley could be seen. Black banners, red banners, golden banners. Hundreds of campfires stretched across the snow like stars fallen to the earth. The hidden sanctuary was completely surrounded. Kale entered the hall moments later. His armor carried fresh cuts, but his posture remained unshaken. His gray eyes met Lyra's. The fortress still stands, but only because the enemy waits. They are planning something. Lyra stepped beside him and looked toward the valley. Why would they stop attacking after coming this far? Kale answered quietly, because they realized killing you may not be enough. They want you alive. Magnus slowly closed his eyes. The prophecy has spread faster than we feared. Lyra turned toward him. What prophecy have you not told me? The old healer hesitated. For the first time since she had known him, he seemed afraid to speak. Then he finally answered. Long before the Moonborn Kingdom existed, the first seers wrote of a child who would unite every wolf bloodline beneath one crown. A child born from a rejected bond. A child carrying the strength of both the Blackthorn Alphas and the Moonborn Queens. If raised with love, the kingdoms would finally know peace. If consumed by hatred, the world would burn. Lyra instinctively placed both hands over her stomach. The child inside her suddenly moved. Only a tiny movement, yet it stole her breath. A quiet smile appeared across her face despite the fear surrounding them. For the first time, she truly felt that another life was growing within her. Magnus watched with gentle eyes. The heir has awakened. Before anyone could continue, another loud horn echoed through the valley outside. General Orion looked through the crystal window. An envoy approaches. One rider only. Kale frowned. Open the upper gate. Let him speak. Moments later, the rider entered the fortress courtyard under a white banner. He removed his hood. Every northern warrior immediately reached for a weapon. It was Captain Darius of the Blackthorn Kingdom. He stopped several steps away from Lyra before lowering one knee to the frozen ground. Your Majesty, Alpha King Rowan Blackthorn requests safe passage. He wishes to speak with you alone. The words settled heavily over everyone present. Kale immediately answered. Denied. Darius remained kneeling. The Alpha King comes without an army, without weapons. He comes only with truth. Lyra remained silent. Her heart began beating faster. She had imagined this meeting countless times while wandering through the snow after her rejection. In every dream she had shouted. She had cried. She had demanded justice. Now that the moment stood before her, she felt only exhaustion. Kale quietly stepped beside her. You owe him nothing. She nodded slowly. I know, but I deserve answers. After a long silence, she looked toward Darius. Tell your king he may enter. Alone. If one soldier follows him, the meeting ends before it begins. Darius bowed deeply before riding back through the snowy valley. An hour later, Rowan climbed the mountain path alone. No royal guard walked beside him. No banner flew behind him. Only the wind accompanied him. The massive fortress gates slowly opened. Northern warriors watched every step with cold eyes. Some remembered the public rejection. None welcomed him. Rowan entered the sacred hall and stopped. His breath caught. Lyra stood before him, wearing the ancient silver crown. Her silver blonde hair rested over white fur-trimmed robes unlike anything he had ever seen. She looked familiar, yet completely changed. Not because of power, because confidence had replaced uncertainty. She no longer searched the room for permission to exist. She belonged wherever she stood. For several long moments, neither of them spoke. Finally, Rowan lowered himself onto one knee. The most powerful Alpha King in the North bowed before the woman he had rejected. I have come to ask for forgiveness. The room remained silent. Lyra looked at him calmly. Forgiveness is not something you ask for. It is something you earn. Rowan lowered his head. You are right. I believed lies. I chose forged evidence over the truth inside my own heart. Every day since your disappearance, I have regretted that choice. He slowly looked up. I cannot erase what I did, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. Lyra listened quietly. His words sounded honest. That made them hurt even more. Because honesty had arrived too late. She stepped closer. Do you know what I remember most from that day? It was not your rejection. It was the moment you looked into my eyes and believed I was capable of betraying you. She shook her head gently. That pain cannot be undone. Rowan closed his eyes. I know. His voice almost broke. If I could trade my throne for one chance to change that moment, I would. Cale watched the conversation without interruption. He saw the regret in Rowan's face. He also saw the wounds still hidden inside Lyra. Some scars healed slowly. Others never disappeared. Before Rowan could speak again, a loud scream echoed from outside. General Orion immediately rushed toward the entrance. Another messenger stumbled inside, covered in blood. His face had turned pale. The enemy launched a surprise attack from beneath the ice. Secret tunnels. They are inside the lower fortress. Magnus suddenly looked around in horror. Where is Elder Magnus? Every face turned. The old healer was gone. Only his wooden staff remained lying on the crystal floor. Beside it rested a single crimson ribbon. Lyra recognized it instantly. Lady Selene always wore crimson silk. A cold fear spread through her chest. Selene had never wanted the crown. She had wanted Magnus. General Orion picked up another object lying beside the ribbon. A folded piece of parchment. He handed it to Lyra. With trembling hands she opened it. Only one sentence had been written across the page. Bring the unborn heir to the Black Ice Fortress before the next full moon, or the old man dies. The message was signed with a single name. Selene. Before anyone could recover from the shock, another terrifying howl echoed across the mountains. One of the ancient wolves staggered into the courtyard with an arrow buried deep in its side. It collapsed before Lyra. With its final strength, it looked toward the northern horizon. Then it released one last painful cry. The warning was clear. The hunt for the queen had ended. Now the hunt for her unborn child had truly begun. The dying wolf took one final breath before its great body became still. Silence spread across the courtyard. Every warrior lowered their head in respect. These ancient guardians had protected the Moonborn bloodline for centuries without asking for reward. Seeing one fall reminded everyone that the war had entered a far darker chapter. Lyra slowly knelt beside the fallen guardian. She rested her trembling hand upon its thick silver fur. Thank you. Her voice was barely louder than the wind. Thank you for finding me before I even knew who I was. The silver birthmark on her shoulder glowed softly. Warm light spread beneath her fingertips. The wolf's wounded face relaxed into peaceful silence, as though it had been waiting only for that single touch before finally resting. General Orion watched quietly. The old legends were true. The Moonborn Queen did not command wolves through fear. She earned their loyalty through compassion. Lyra slowly stood. Tears still shimmered in her eyes. Then she looked toward the frozen northern horizon, where the Black Ice Fortress stood hidden among towering cliffs. Selene believes I will trade the future of this child to save one life. She does not understand me. Cale stepped beside her. Then what will you do? Lyra answered without hesitation. I will save both. A quiet determination settled over every warrior gathered around her. No one questioned her words. For the first time, they truly believed the lost kingdom had found its queen. Inside the Great War Hall, a massive map covered an ancient stone table. Mountain passes, frozen rivers, hidden caves. Every path leading toward the Black Ice Fortress had been marked with careful precision. General Orion placed several carved wooden figures across the map. Selene expects us to attack from the southern pass. That route is heavily defended. Cale pointed toward a narrow valley hidden between two glaciers. There is another way. Few know it exists, but the journey is dangerous. One avalanche could bury an entire army. Rowan studied the map carefully. Then we do not march as an army. Every eye turned toward him. He continued calmly. Large forces move slowly. Selene will see them coming. A smaller strike team can reach the fortress before she expects us. General Orion folded his arms. And who leads this team? Rowan answered without hesitation. I will. Cale looked directly into his eyes. You are asking warriors who watched you reject their queen to trust your command. Rowan accepted the words without anger. I am asking for nothing. Judge me by what I do next, not by what I failed to do before. The room remained silent. Finally Lyra spoke. He comes with us. Cale looked toward her. You trust him? Lyra slowly shook her head. Not yet, but I trust the man he is trying to become. Those words carried more weight than forgiveness. Rowan lowered his head in quiet gratitude. Before sunrise, a small company left the hidden mountain. Lyra walked at the front beside Cale and Rowan. Behind them marched General Orion and 20 of the finest Moonborn warriors. No banners flew above them. No horns announced their departure. Only the ancient wolves followed silently through the deep snow. The journey north became harder with every passing mile. Frozen cliffs blocked the sunlight. Sharp winds carved through heavy cloaks. More than once the narrow mountain path nearly disappeared beneath fresh snowfall. Yet no one complained. Every step carried them closer to Magnus, closer to the truth. On the second evening they reached a frozen valley where strange black stones rose from the snow like broken teeth. General Orion suddenly raised one hand. Stop! The company immediately froze. Cale looked around carefully. What is it? Orion slowly knelt beside a fresh footprint. These are not ours. Rowan crouched beside him. Scouts. Orion nodded. No. An ambush. Almost at once arrows rained from the cliffs above. The first volley struck without warning. Moonborn warriors raised their shields as wooden shafts shattered against steel. Ancient wolves charged toward the rocks. Enemy soldiers hidden beneath white cloaks sprang from every direction. The valley erupted into fierce battle. Steel clashed beneath falling snow. Cale met the first attacker with a single powerful strike. Rowan fought beside him without hesitation. Neither alpha tried to outshine the other. They moved like two experienced warriors protecting the same people. Lyra remained near the center while General Orion guarded her. Another wave of enemies rushed forward. One assassin broke through the defensive line and raced directly toward Lyra. His blade flashed through the cold air. General Orion moved to intercept. But he was one heartbeat too late. Before the assassin reached her, a powerful black wolf crashed into him from the side. The impact sent both rolling across the frozen ground. Lyra gasped. Rowan. Without thinking, he had shifted into his wolf form. His massive black wolf stood between Lyra and every remaining attacker. His chest rose, heavily from the effort. The broken mate bond no longer connected them. Yet his instincts still drove him to protect her. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. The surviving attackers fled into the mountains. None escaped. Ancient wolves silently hunted every last one. As the snow settled once more, Rowan shifted back into human form. Fresh wounds covered his shoulder where an enemy blade had struck during the fight. Blood stained the snow beneath him. Lyra hurried toward him before she could stop herself. Sit down. Rowan looked surprised. You would still heal me. She met his eyes. I heal the wounded. That is who I am. Not because of what you did. He quietly obeyed. She placed both hands over the deep wound across his shoulder. Silver light slowly flowed between her fingers. The torn flesh began closing. Pain faded. Warmth replaced it. Rowan watched her silently. You have every reason to hate me. She continued healing without looking up. Hatred is another prison. I have spent enough time imprisoned by pain. When the wound had completely disappeared, she stepped back. Their eyes met once more. Nothing more needed to be said. The journey continued. Late the following afternoon, the black ice fortress finally appeared beyond the mountains. Dark towers rose from a frozen cliff, overlooking a vast canyon. Black banners whipped violently beneath storm clouds. Smoke drifted from hundreds of watchfires. General Orion studied the fortress. Too many guards. Cale narrowed his eyes. Something feels wrong. There are fewer patrols than expected. Rowan looked toward the main gate. Because she wants us inside. Lyra felt the same unease. Celine had always preferred traps over battles. Then the great gates slowly opened by themselves. A lone figure walked into the snowy courtyard. It was Elder Magnus. Chains bound his wrists. His face carried bruises, yet he remained standing. Celine appeared behind him wearing her crimson cloak. She smiled as though greeting old friends. Welcome. I wondered how long it would take. Lyra stepped forward. Release him. Celine laughed softly. You still think this is about one old man? Poor child. You have understood nothing. She slowly walked around Magnus. Do you know why your kingdom truly died? Because someone inside the Moonborn Palace opened the gates from within. Lyra's heart pounded. Who? Celine's smile widened. I did not destroy your family alone. Someone you already trust helped me. The words struck like lightning. Every warrior looked at one another. Disbelief spread through the company. Celine raised one finger toward the group standing beside Lyra. One of your allies carries the blood of the traitor who betrayed the Moonborn Queen. And before anyone could ask another question, hidden chains shot upward from beneath the snow. Steel traps slammed shut around Rowan's arms and legs. Massive iron hooks pulled him violently into the air above the courtyard. Celine looked up at the captured Alpha King and smiled. Now the real game begins. The iron chains snapped tight around Rowan's wrists and shoulders. The force lifted him high above the frozen courtyard until his feet no longer touched the ground. Heavy black hooks locked into the ancient stone towers, while dozens of hidden archers appeared along the fortress walls. Every bow pointed toward Lyra and her companions. No one moved. The icy wind howled between the towers, carrying the sound of creaking chains across the snow. Celine stood at the center of the courtyard wearing her crimson cloak like a queen who believed victory already belonged to her. A satisfied smile rested upon her face. You always were predictable, Rowan. You would throw away your throne for the woman you rejected. How beautifully tragic. Rowan struggled against the chains, but they refused to break. Ancient iron, forged with magic older than any alpha bloodline. The more strength he used, the tighter they became. Cale immediately stepped forward. Release him. Celine laughed quietly. You still think you are here to negotiate? No. You came exactly where I wanted you. She slowly raised one hand. The massive fortress gates slammed shut behind Lyra's company. The sound echoed through the mountains like the final note of a funeral bell. Moonborn warriors quickly formed a protective circle around Lyra, while General Orion studied every wall, searching for weakness. There was none. The entire fortress had become a prison. Celine looked directly at Lyra. I have waited 23 years for this moment. The last Moonborn Queen finally stands where her mother died. The words struck Lyra like frozen steel. Her mother. She had seen fragments of that terrible night inside the ancient visions, but hearing those words from the woman responsible filled her heart with a pain unlike anything she had ever known. She stepped forward. Why? Why destroy innocent people? Celine's smile slowly disappeared. Because your family believed blood should decide the future. Because they ruled while others served. Because my father knelt before your mother until the day he died. She took another step closer. I swore that no Moonborn child would ever wear that crown again. Lyra looked into Celine's eyes and finally understood. This was never about power alone. It was about hatred that had poisoned an entire lifetime. Before Lyra could answer, Elder Magnus suddenly lifted his head. His voice remained calm despite the chains around his wrists. Do not listen to her lies. Your mother offered peace. Celine chose war. Celine's eyes flashed with anger. Silence. She struck Magnus across the face. The old healer staggered but refused to fall. The sound echoed across the silent courtyard. Something inside Lyra broke. Not fear. Not grief. Resolve. She slowly removed the silver cloak from her shoulders and handed it to General Orion. Protect the child. She placed one hand gently over her stomach. Then she walked forward alone. Every Moonborn warrior tried to stop her. Your Majesty. Please. She continued walking. No one followed. Even Cale understood that this moment belonged only to her. Celine watched with growing curiosity. You still believe kindness will save you? Lyra stopped only a few steps away. No. I believe truth is stronger than fear. She turned toward the hundreds of enemy soldiers watching from the fortress walls. Her voice carried across every tower. You have been told I came to steal your kingdoms. You have been told I seek revenge against every pack. That is a lie. Silence spread across the courtyard. Many soldiers lowered their weapons, ever so slightly. Lyra continued. I was an orphan who healed strangers without asking their names. I never searched for a crown. I never wanted a throne. Everything I have today was forced upon me by those who feared the truth. Her words reached places no sword could touch. Even enemy warriors exchanged uncertain glances. Celine noticed it immediately. Enough. She pulled a dagger from beneath her cloak and pressed it against Magnus' throat. One more word and he dies. The courtyard became deadly quiet. Magnus closed his eyes peacefully. Do not surrender because of me. Finish what your mother began. Lyra looked at the old man who had carried her through fire as an infant and raised her with nothing but love. Her heart ached. Then something unexpected happened. Rowan stopped struggling against the chains. Instead, he looked directly at Lyra. His voice rang across the courtyard. Listen to me. The word surprised everyone. Even Celine looked toward him. Rowan continued. Everything happening today began because I failed to trust the woman chosen for me. I judged innocence as guilt. I chose lies over truth. He slowly looked toward the gathered armies. Every kingdom heard my rejection. Now every kingdom will hear my confession. His voice grew stronger. Lyra Ashwood never betrayed me. She never betrayed this world. I betrayed her. The confession struck the soldiers harder than any battle cry. The mighty Alpha King had publicly admitted his greatest mistake. Celine's smile finally vanished. Fool! She raised her hand toward the archers. Kill them all! Before the order could be carried out, a deafening howl rolled across the mountains. Then another, and another. The frozen valley shook beneath thousands of pounding paws. Ancient wolves burst from the surrounding forests like a silver river flowing across the snow. Behind them marched the hidden Moonborn army that had awakened beneath the mountain. Hundreds became thousands. The fortress walls erupted into chaos. Battle horns echoed through the storm. General Orion lifted his sword. For the queen! Moonborn warriors charged through the shattered outer defenses. Kale led the northern clans beside them. The courtyard exploded into battle. Steel flashed beneath falling snow. Ancient wolves leaped upon enemy towers. Arrows darkened the sky. Lyra ran toward Magnus, while Rowan struggled desperately against the enchanted chains. Celine intercepted her. Their eyes met. No more words remained between them. Only destiny. Celine attacked first. Her blade sliced through the freezing air with surprising speed. Lyra stepped aside. Years of healing had taught her precision rather than violence. She avoided each strike by the smallest distance. Celine attacked again and again. Anger drove every movement. Lyra remained calm. She waited, watched. Then finally she saw the opening. Instead of striking Celine, she reached for the black crystal hanging around her neck. Her fingers closed around it. The crystal shattered. A wave of dark energy burst outward before disappearing into the sky. Celine froze. No. Her magical protection had vanished. The illusion hiding her crimes vanished with it. Every soldier in the courtyard suddenly saw flashes of forgotten memories surrounding her. The burning Moonborn Palace, the murdered royal family, the forged letters, the assassins, the poisoned alliances. Her own soldiers stared in horror. One by one they lowered their swords. A captain stepped forward. You lied to us. Another warrior removed the wolf crest from his armor. We fought for justice, not murder. Within moments, dozens of soldiers abandoned Celine. Then hundreds followed. She looked around in disbelief. Everything she had built through deception was collapsing before her eyes. Desperation filled her face. She reached beneath her cloak and drew a hidden dagger. If I cannot have the heir, no one will. She rushed toward Lyra with terrifying speed. Rowan roared. Lyra! Without thinking, he shifted. The ancient chains shattered beneath the force of his transformation. His enormous black wolf threw himself between Celine and Lyra. The dagger plunged deep into his shoulder instead. Blood stained the white snow. Celine stumbled backward in shock. She had expected the Alpha to save himself. Instead, he had chosen Lyra, chosen their unborn child, chosen them over his own life. Lyra dropped to her knees beside the wounded wolf. Her hands immediately glowed with brilliant silver light. But before she could begin, healing, a sharp pain suddenly rushed through her own body. She gasped. One hand instinctively gripped Rowan's thick black fur. The other moved to her stomach. Her breathing became uneven. Magnus looked toward her with wide eyes. No, not now. Lyra tried to stand, but another wave of pain forced her back to her knees. The child had chosen that very moment to enter the world, all while the greatest battle in wolf history still raged around them. The battle did not stop. Steel continued to crash against steel across the frozen courtyard, while snow mixed with the footprints of warriors and wolves. Battle cries echoed from every tower as the storm grew fiercer above the black ice fortress. Yet at the center of that chaos time seemed to slow. Lyra fell to one knee beside Rowan. Another sharp wave of pain swept through her body. She drew a slow breath and pressed one hand against her stomach while the other rested upon Rowan's thick black fur. His wounded black wolf lay protectively beside her despite the deep wound across his shoulder. Even in pain he struggled to rise again. Magnus hurried toward them with surprising strength for a man of his age. "Make space. Protect the queen." General Orion immediately gathered Moonborn warriors around them while Kale and the northern clans formed a second line beyond the first. Ancient wolves stood shoulder to shoulder with human warriors, creating an unbreakable wall around Lyra. No enemy crossed it. Selene watched everything with desperate eyes. She understood the prophecy better than anyone. If the child survived her dream would die forever. Hatred twisted her face. She grabbed another sword from a fallen soldier and charged through the battlefield. "Kill the heir. Now." A handful of loyal followers obeyed. They rushed toward the protective circle with reckless determination. General Orion met them first. His silver blade moved with deadly precision. The old commander had waited half his life for this moment. He refused to surrender it. One attacker fell, then another. Kale fought beside him like a winter storm. His sword flashed through the snow with calm, unstoppable force. The remaining enemies quickly realized they were facing warriors who no longer feared death. Inside the protective circle, Magnus gently supported Lyra. "Breathe slowly. Listen only to my voice. Forget the battle. Forget the storm. Think only of the child." Lyra closed her eyes. She tried to silence the sounds of war surrounding her. Another painful contraction came. She gripped Rowan's fur tightly. The great black wolf slowly lifted his head despite his wound. His bright blue eyes met hers. There was no fear inside them, only unwavering devotion. Without speaking, he moved closer until his body shielded her from the freezing wind. Lyra rested her forehead against his. For the first time since the moon ceremony, she felt the broken pieces of her heart becoming whole. Not because the past had disappeared, because they had both changed. Outside the circle, Selene screamed in frustration. She realized ordinary soldiers would never break through the Moonborn defense. Her gaze shifted toward the massive stone pillar supporting the fortress wall. If she could not reach the child, she would bury everyone beneath the fortress. She sprinted toward the ancient pillar carrying a black crystal filled with forbidden magic. Magnus saw her. His eyes widened. "Stop her. If that crystal breaks, the entire fortress will collapse." Kale immediately turned, but he was too far away. General Orion was surrounded by enemies. No one could reach Selene in time. Then Rowan moved. Still bleeding from his shoulder, he forced himself back into human form. Without waiting for his wound to heal, he ran across the battlefield. Every step left drops of blood upon the snow. Selene reached the pillar. She raised the crystal high above her head. "Everything ends today." Before she could strike, Rowan threw himself forward. The crystal shattered against his raised arm instead of a stone. Dark energy exploded through the courtyard. The blast threw both of them across the frozen ground. Silence followed. Then the darkness slowly faded. Rowan struggled to breathe. His arm had absorbed the curse meant for the fortress. Black veins spread beneath his skin. The poison worked quickly. Selene laughed weakly despite her injuries. "You saved them, but now you die." Rowan looked toward Lyra. A peaceful smile appeared on his face. "If this is the price, I gladly pay it." Lyra saw the black poison spreading through his body. Something awakened deep inside her soul. Not anger. Love. Love stronger than betrayal. Love stronger than regret. Silver light burst from the moonborn mark upon her shoulder. The light expanded across the battlefield until every warrior stopped fighting. Snowflakes shimmered like tiny stars. The wind itself became silent. Lyra slowly stood. The pain of childbirth disappeared beneath a far greater purpose. She walked toward Rowan, surrounded by brilliant moonlight. Every step melted the ice beneath her feet. She knelt beside him. "You once believed I could destroy your kingdom. Today I choose to save it." She placed both hands over his poisoned arm. The silver light flowed into the darkness. The black veins slowly disappeared. The curse dissolved like smoke beneath the sunrise. Rowan opened his eyes. He looked at Lyra with tears. He no longer tried to hide. "I do not deserve this." Lyra smiled softly. "No, But our child deserves a future where hatred does not decide everything. Before Rowan could answer, another powerful contraction bent Lyra forward. Magnus hurried beside her. Now! The child is coming now! Moonborn warriors quickly lifted shields around them, creating a circle of privacy, while the battle outside slowly faded. Most enemy soldiers had already surrendered after witnessing Celine's crimes. Only Celine herself remained. She tried to crawl toward a fallen dagger. General Orion calmly stepped in front of her. The old commander looked down without hatred, only justice. Your war is over. Celine glared at him. Kill me! I will never kneel. Orion slowly shook his head. Death is too simple. You will live long enough to watch the world you tried to destroy become united. He ordered 2 warriors to place her in chains. For the first time in 23 years, Celine stood defeated. Moments later, a tiny cry echoed through the frozen courtyard. Every warrior turned. Every wolf lifted its head. The newborn child rested safely in Magnus' arms, wrapped in Lyra's silver cloak. A beautiful baby with soft silver hair and bright blue eyes quietly opened those tiny eyes for the very first time. The entire battlefield became silent. Then something extraordinary happened. Every ancient wolf across the valley slowly lowered its head. One after another. Hundreds became thousands. Even wolves hidden beyond the mountains answered. Their deep howls rolled across the kingdom like an ancient song returning after centuries of silence. Magnus smiled through tears. The prophecy lives. He carefully placed the child into Lyra's arms. She looked down at the tiny face resting peacefully against her chest. All the pain, all the loss, all the lonely nights beneath frozen skies. Every wound suddenly felt worth surviving. Rowan slowly knelt before her, not as an alpha king, not as a ruler, only as a man asking one final question. I cannot change the past, but if there is even the smallest place for me in your future, I will spend every day earning it. Lyra looked into his eyes for a long moment. She remembered the arena, the rejection, the laughter, the tears she had hidden from the world. She also remembered the man who had crossed kingdoms without an army, the man who had confessed his mistakes before every soldier, the man who had thrown himself between her and death without hesitation. People could choose hatred. People could also choose change. She slowly reached out her free hand. Rowan took it carefully, as though holding the most precious thing in the world. A warm breeze swept across the frozen valley. Dark storm clouds finally began to disappear. Sunlight broke through for the first time in many days. Its golden light covered the ruined fortress. The surrendered soldiers knelt beside the Moonborn warriors. Northern alphas lowered their heads beside the Blackthorn guards. Enemies no longer stood divided. They stood together. High above the valley, an enormous white wolf appeared upon the snowy cliffs. Its glowing eyes rested upon the newborn child. Then it released one long, powerful howl before disappearing into the morning mist. Magnus looked toward the distant mountains with quiet wonder. The first guardian has accepted the heir. But before anyone could ask what he meant, the baby suddenly opened those bright blue eyes once more. For a single heartbeat, both of the child's eyes shimmered with pure silver light, brighter than the ancient Moonborn crown itself. Every elder watching understood the meaning immediately. The child had not only inherited the blood of the Moonborn queens and the Blackthorn alphas. The newborn carried a power that no ruler in history had ever possessed. And somewhere beyond the farthest northern mountains, ancient forces that had slept for 1,000 years quietly opened their eyes.